Hello, Anthony. Welcome to Uncommon Sense. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting me in.
So, we're going to talk about using PDSA with AI. And I know that this has really been the genesis for this has been some of the work that you've been doing recently and the feedback that you've been getting with clients. So, I'm really excited to hear what you're going to say today.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So we've been working with a number of clients and working internally as well with AI and the best case deployment of it. And when we work particularly in clients, um, it can be very fun playing with the tools. And what we're finding in terms of that feedback you mentioned, Suze, is that people are crying out for something that helps them take the shiny toy, but turn it into something that's more practical and is actually, they can talk about it in terms their organization understands and that their colleagues understand. And that's actually getting good results. Biggest challenge we're seeing really, and the problem that we're trying to solve today is two things. It's poor and inconsistent results with AI, and it's hurdles and bottlenecks, things that seem to just stop people making progress. And we had a really great example of this with a client last week, which we can talk through. Does that sound good?
Fabulous. That sounds great. I'm excited. So, tell me what you've been experiencing and the impact around using PDSA with your AI developments.
Yeah, so we're taking this example situation, and this is a client who has this really interesting kind of product development journey. And as part of the product development journey, like many organizations, they work with suppliers. And they have this one particular situation where, as they're making their products, there is a kind of a final human inspection that must be done to the design. Okay, so it's not a quality inspection, it's a design inspection to check this is the thing that we want to release to our market. And as part of this, the way this has always worked historically is that two designers were needed to do this job. You'd have one walking around the product doing the assessment and speaking and giving kind of notes, and the other taking those notes and writing everything down. And then towards the end of the session, and actually usually after the session, that second person would have to take those notes and distill them down into the specific things that need to be amended for that product. So it could be placed into a report, like a worksheet, that's then sent off to the supplier so that those changes can be made. Right? It's a process, and you can see where people would think, oh, surely there's some potential in AI. Wouldn't you think that, Suze, in that situation?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, question is, how did they do with their initial experimentation? Well, I actually was on a coaching call with someone in this situation, and they were running into some problems. Um, the problem was originally phrased to me, at least, like this. It's just not very good. I mean, it's just we don't like the summary we're getting back. And what I observed was this exact situation. So there's two problems we talked about earlier. It was these poor and inconsistent results that we're almost finding difficult to articulate, but also just a general hurdle of how are we going to get this to save it in our spreadsheet? And we don't understand. And so the solution was really twofold. The first is to break the problem down, and this is something that all AI practitioners need to do. But then the second thing that came to our rescue was PDSA. So first, the breakdown. The breakdown you have to do with AI is basically twofold. First, you have to break down the intelligence that you're looking for from the actions that you're trying to do. Let me explain what I mean. In this situation, the actions we're trying to do are around saving something in a spreadsheet and probably around recording a conversation somehow. And that doesn't need AI. They're just tasks to be
Hmm.
done. There's a number of ways we could go about those. The intelligence that we're looking for, if we think of that second designer, is the intelligence of basically it's recognizing some images, but it's also reasoning through a transcript and basically reasoning your way to a set of precise changes that need to be made. So we set up a PDSA test. And the way this works, you can picture it. First of all, if we just want to test this intelligence, forget all the stuff around saving things. Let's just test that because even if we can just get that to work, that would be, really promising, and it would
Yes.
save us a lot of time, even if we still have to do the saving.
Mhm.
So we take that step, and what we do is we find the correct. We take a transcript of a call first of all, a transcript of an inspection that we have, and we set up a scientific test where we say, first of all, our prediction is that the correct items and only the correct items are going to be returned from this big transcript, and they're going to be worded as precisely as possible. And so then we ask the AI, try and do that,
Yeah.
and then we see what comes back. What comes back is okay, but yes, it needs some refinement. So what we do is in our study phase, we hold up what we would have said against what the AI said. And now we're really precisely pulling out what about the AI's response was wrong. And we're feeding that as our action. We're adapting our prompt, feeding it back using a framework that we train our AI practitioners on called ROCOS, which is just a framework for gathering and structuring a prompt. So by doing this and testing it through about 2 or 3 cycles live on a coaching call, we were able to do the step of intelligence.
Mm.
And that had held the team up for a while. And it's not that they were necessarily doing anything wrong. It's that they were trying to combine all of the steps into kind of one big prompt and just sort of recording a call and saying, can you do this?
Mm. Yes.
So it's those two key things of breaking it down, but also realizing that the prompt you're writing, the thing you're asking the AI to do, it's very unlikely that you're just going to be able to sit and explain it all. It needs to be iterative. It needs to be done using PDSA. So
Yes.
PDSA and prompt engineering, therefore, are completely linked.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you can see this in any normal improvement experiment, improvement solution development, where people are using iterations, and yet perhaps is it true that with AI we have this sense that that is almost going to be right first time, and we're forgetting that we need the same iterative workings in order to educate it to be as precise as we want it to be.
And behaviorally, it's very understandable because for most of our careers, for those of us who have been working for a while, technology was very much about, what's the right button to press? What's the right option
Yes.
to click? And if I pick wrong, I picked wrong. If I picked right, I picked right. And it all worked like that. It's a very different psychological mindset to come out that isn't what's the right prompt to type, but what's a prompt to type, and then we'll have to go from there. That can be quite daunting, I think, Sue, sometimes.
Yes. Yes. So there's something about that whole, as you say, the iterative nature of it, but there's also about this resetting the mindset that says this is going to require um, education for AI to understand, much like we do with the human being. If we were asking a human being to create something, you'd be refining all the time, wouldn't you, in the early days?
Yeah, yeah. So that's the advice we want people to take away really, is that when we're prompting, it's always a PDSA game. Even if it's a simple prompt, it might be we can go around that loop once. But actually, if we're going to achieve something of value in our organizations, there's a big warning sign if we find ourselves sat trying to just draft the perfect prompt
Yeah.
rather than being in a properly scientific recursive cycle. One will rapidly lead to progress, as we see on all of our coaching calls. The other tends to lead to these frustrations and inconsistent outcomes.
Yes. And it's where the improvement practitioner can really add value because they've got those tools at their disposal to use.
Yeah. Yeah, and it goes back to why just giving our organizations a co-pilot license isn't enough to see improvement.
Mm, yes. Brilliant. That's really useful. And I love that learning that's coming and that's developing the thinking along the way. That's really useful to have. Thank you very much, Ant.
Thank you.